It's about 6 years in the making, so I can't believe that it's finally done, and sort of done. There's a few more tweaks I'm going to do, but there was one prior screening in New York, but this is, I guess, the second official screening, so it's practically a premiere. Yeah, no, thank you all for coming, and I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I got one.
Related to the film.
Yeah, they're going to make that available for PBS networks so everybody can see this. I think more people should really see this.
Thank you. So, can you put that in the form of a question? Did everyone hear the question? You asked what my motivation was. I went to school, and it was payback. Lori Couture here, actually, I really was going to try to find some way to introduce and express my appreciation. If you want to stand up and acknowledge, and incredibly helpful, and so extremely appreciative. The question was what's the alternative? I actually tried to be very careful about not presenting any kind of alternative. I know homeschooling is sort of touched upon in the movie, but it's only there's about maybe 1 minute of it mentioned. The problem that I've learned, and I try to be very careful of, is the thing that I've noticed in any project that presents problems with a major social issue is that when critics find any sort of flaw or problem with anything that's presented, even if its magnitude better than the original problem, it's immediately discarded and discounted. If this were 1850 and this was a film opposing slavery, people would complain, well, what's going to happen if slaves are freed? Can you imagine what society will look like? What's the alternative? And it's actually very carefully, intentionally designed just to say, we have a problem here. There aren't easy solutions. There are certainly no perfect solutions, but there is much better that can be done. It starts with at least understanding that that there is a real problem going on, and that youth is not being treated with any respect, and that there are issues. Baseball cap.
First of all, I'd like to say I really enjoyed watching this movie and having you come here to speak. I guess my major thing that I got from this movie is the communistic aspect of the movie, how it's so structured in school. Would you maybe see that as like the resurgence of communism in this country, how it's getting stronger, where it used to be so evil here, and now we just watch this video where it's a whole communist society that's being run through our kids. Yeah.
I think when you say the question was about the movie period, Soviet, I guess, would be a better sort of word. And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Actually, it was something I noticed. There was it started with Reagan, who was decrying the evil empire, was his exact words during a speech he gave in 1983, and every aspect of what defined the evil empire in the Reagan world, he helped implement and bring about in our society. If you look at a lot of the changes that have taken place, they really do mirror that in many ways. I mean, I don't think there's a single person here who isn't somewhat suspect when they talk on the phone or send an email or text that possibly someone could be monitoring that in some capacity, and to a certain degree they're correct. And other aspects too. It's certainly its own version of that. I think the situation with school is a little different. I think for one reason, I think it's gone. The situation has persisted basically since the institution of public schooling in the 1850s. So there always was that kind of, and it was modeled on a Prussian construct that was done for militarism to basically create soldiers, and then it was sort of adopted and morphed into enabling kids to work in the factory, and now it's sort of constructed to enable kids to be better adapted when they go to prison, and be able to understand kind of what prison life is like, and be able to adapt that. Although apparently prisons are a little bit nicer, I guess they have a little more money there. Better libraries, Thank you. Valerie.
How did you get those young people? Did you just interview them?
Yeah, that's one of the funny things also, just, to compound things, is, under the law, youth is more and more treated as property. Just more and more rulings have kind of affirmed that, which is disturbing in itself. As far as the kids that were interviewed, I talked to them first and then had to go through the process of convincing the parents afterwards. For a number of the students that were at Columbine, I was just getting B-roll in front of the school, and some kids walked up to me and asked me what I was doing, and I told them about the project, and then they just went off for an hour talking, and I just turned the cameras on them. And then I had to, win the parents over, who were incredibly helpful. I kind of got adopted by Dan Ratchlett's parents, and I have a very close relationship with them. I've been out to visit them a number of times. They let me in their home, and for like 2 weeks, we followed Dan around with a camera, and we were in his room when he woke up, and was making breakfast. That scene was not staged either. It was just so brilliant. Him making the coffee and everything was just how it was. He was very, very fortunate, and he does his sort of Marvin the paranoid android, speech about every day of the week being worse than the previous one, which, it's just him being himself. He's actually gone into film, and he's becoming a filmmaker, so I feel like I had some influence there, whether you think that's good or not, depending on how people think of filmmakers. But university versus public school. Right, okay, so some of the, basically people who are in university are there voluntarily, and that in and of itself is if you don't want to be there, you don't have to be there. I think that's, a major difference in and of itself. There are probably other factors I can sort of speculate, discuss, and even question the premise itself. Could universities operate better, perhaps in different ways? I don't think that there should be such an emphasis on grading. But again, we're just kind of getting into personal opinion. But I think bottom line is that you're there voluntarily, and it's. Another question.
Where was Eastside High School?
I'm going to fix that. Eastside High School it's actually was a celebrated high school in Time magazine. The principal was on the cover. His name was Joe Clark, and he was kind of famous because he started carrying a bat to school, and he was the champion of the get tough approach, and allegedly had turned the school around, and it did actually get a bunch of funding as a result of the attention, and there was a new principal, and again, it was just one of those wonderful lines where the principal said that he'd rather retire than have his school resemble a prison. You just you can't write that. Huh?
You touched on the important of students knowing themselves and understanding who they are, just a little bit in the movie. What importance do you think that has in public schools? I mean, should public schools be allowing students to figure out who they are?
It was an interesting process making the film, and I got radicalized in the process. I mean, there were a few things that I didn't know going into the movie. I had no idea about prescription drug use, for instance, and whether the condition was something that had to do with, maybe parents, did drugs and it resulted in something. I didn't know that it was all just, invented by marketing. Also, public education was another thing that I didn't quite, know was, it came about, or the final thing was talking with Morgan Amrick, and his basic statement was that schools can't be reformed, and that it's the institution itself that prevents things. And so he would object to things like, where people would talk about, shouldn't people learn civil liberties in school? Shouldn't people learn like that? And he's like, no, you can't put the burden of learning who one is and learning, their rights and certain things, and make that dependent on an outside authority figure to provide that information. I mean, these things, can and would develop naturally. I mean, everyone needs mentors and people who are experienced to help guide them and give them information and how that's designed. There are many different models. I'm not proposing one. I didn't get into that. That would be a subject of another project or documentary. But as far as self-actualization, that comes from within, and having people who are nurturing around you, who can help you explore things that interest you and help you develop and grow.